Howdy, and welcome to the Cowboy Up Podcast, brought to you by the legendary White Stallion Ranch in the shadow of the Tucson Mountains, along with Basecamp for veterans. In the West, Cowboy Up is more than a saying. It's a way of life defined by grit, hard work, and self-reliance. And that courage is the heart of the mission of Basecamp for veterans. This podcast is dedicated to honoring the Cowboy Up spirit. We are the only show bringing you true Western adventure and history while showcasing the profound healing that happens when our nation's heroes connect with the power of horses. Join Russell True, Deborah Plum, Theo Windish, and Stephen Clausen as we share tales from the range and powerful stories of resilience, all working towards one goal while helping everyone to cowboy up for the next chapter of their life. Good day, Russell.
Hey there.
How are you?
I'm all right.
Good. I'm happy to have you here. I don't want to waste too much time just talking to each other because I think our topic and our guest today has got such value and it's going to resonate, and it's certainly not a softball, and it's something that I think just about everybody talks about and they don't know what to do about, and that is the subject of water.
Well, I just had we had a little, Laura Reagan and I had a little RV trip, northern Arizona, and I went to somewhere I hadn't been for over 50 years, which is Lake Powell, and there's a very visual piece of evidence right there because that lake is a shadow of itself, and of course it feeds, it's above Mead in the system, Lake Mead in the system. So yeah, Arnold, longtime friend, our horses eat his alfalfa and Bermuda hay. And, we roped together in the rodeo, and he and I, of course, share same birthday on the same day. So we're coming at this from the same age range. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Arnold, for joining us.
You bet. Thank you, guys. Back in the saddle again.
Well, the fact that the two of you have done this for as long as you have, you've seen the impact of water on virtually everything you do. And I know, Arnold, you being a farmer, because I know you only have, 10 acres that you farm anymore, right?
I think it's 8.5.
Okay, 8.5. You've cut it down a little bit.
Yeah.
That's not true. How many acres do you have? Do you even know?
Yes. We farm about 4,000 acres.
4,000 acres. Well,
yeah. And we've cut back. We have. We were farming 7,000.
Oh, my goodness. Mm-hmm. So this is an open-ended question, and it's a broad brush question. What's going on in the world of water?
What do I say? Panic?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Complete disaster mode. When you leave very, very critical decisions to bureaucrats, sometimes they take too long to react. And I think that's what we're seeing today. Big, major cutbacks along the Colorado River. The lower basin states had not come to an agreement on what they were going to do with the water. The upper basin states did not help. So the Fed stepped in and the Bureau of Reclamation, and I think they've worked out a 2 million acre-foot cutback between the three lower basin states.
Can you define upper basin and lower basin it's
sure
routine for you, but for others, they don't maybe know.
The lower basin states, the lower basin state users of the Colorado River water are Arizona, California, and Nevada. The upper basin is Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming. And so probably the major amount of the cutback of the 2 million acre feet will be to agriculture. This time around, I think the California growers who have the perfected right on the Colorado River, their right to the water there supersedes the nation. They were using Colorado River water before the United States of America was the United States of America. So they have the ultimate right, but even they're going to feel the pain this time around, and it's going to be a major cutback, 2 million acre feet between the municipalities and agriculture and all other users. To give you an idea how big that number is, when they cut the two large irrigation districts off in central Arizona, the combined use by those two districts was a little over 300,000 acre feet. And they were so far the only major cutback that's been made along the Colorado River. And now everybody else is going to join in and feel the pain.
Okay, now people use the term this many acre feet. What is an acre foot?
An acre foot is the amount of water it takes to cover an acre of land with 1 foot of water.
Okay, so
So
we're
about 330,000 gallons of water,
okay.
a little under, 324, I think.
And so you're talking about three. What was the number you gave? 300,000 cutback. 300,000.
Three.
2 million.
2 million
acre feet.
acre feet cutback.
Yes.
But Central Arizona, you said cut back 300,000.
Yes,
Acre
3 years
feet.
ago, both the Stanfield Irrigation District and the CAIDD, Central Arizona Irrigation and Drainage District, the Eloy CAP district, were both cut off 100% from their CAP water allotment.
So what is the ultimate effect? And I'm asking in two ways. Can they source water elsewhere? If say they have wells, can they rework them, or is this just you're out of business? And if so, are they going to get some money from the government?
My best guess would be that there will be some kind of a compensation program to buffer the pain. There has been for the 2 large irrigation districts in Central Arizona. We received what's called a prevented plant insurance program. So what that does is you have your water allotment that the districts are pumping their wells. The amount of water turns out to be about 2 acre feet allotment. That's not enough to grow a crop. So you condense that onto what it takes to grow a crop. We can farm about 40% of our farms. The other 60%, we get what's called prevent plant insurance. And it doesn't make you rich, but it helps you bridge the bills.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And is it true, Arnold, Eloy's a little bit north of Marana/Tucson. Is that where you started in farming? Because
Correct.
you
Yes, I
have a
did.
long and
Well, that's when
storied
we
career,
started
but that's
farming
where
on
you
our own.
started. Yeah.
Yes, we're a ranch family from Mexico. Dad immigrated up, dad and mom, and then we were in the of all things the hog business.
I
My
remember
dad ran
that.
a large hog farm that was a subsidiary of Arizona Feeds.
I remember.
And then after I graduated the U of A, I went out and got a job in the ag chem industry in Marana, and that slowly morphed into me becoming a farmer.
Yeah, I never thought about that. So did you go right away to U of A? Did you graduate 82?
I graduated, yes, correct, 82.
Yeah, that's same as me. Yeah, we were there same time. But it's a big place.
It's
People always say, do you know so-and-so?
I hate to say this, but I'm going to do a little plug here. Did you ever get around the Aggie house?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I lived. I can remember part of it.
Yeah, my very good friend who's a day younger than you and me, Art Thomason, was on the rodeo team and in the ag program under Marcello.
Okay.
So,
and you know, from my point of view, I think it's really interesting. I'm sitting with a farmer and someone who owns a dude ranch, and if you talk to both of them, you've got to drag out of them that they're highly educated professionals, but they don't talk about it. It's kind of interesting. It really is.
Well, the problem is, both Russell and I suffer from the same problem, and that's when you're in agriculture-related field. You got to be a jack of all trades. So we don't have a whole lot of time to talk about the education. Somebody might need a wrench turned somewhere. So, we never know what we're going to do next.
Yeah, I've tried to follow him at White Stallion, and I have decided it's just impossible. It's just impossible.
well, it is kind of a jack of all trades kind of business, but you're the highly educated one.
No.
So, Arnold, I think you told me that one of the effects of this inability to sort it out was the Corps of Engineers was going to eliminate water for agriculture that is not human consumption. I didn't say that perfectly correctly.
No, but let me clean it up for you.
Yeah.
BOR, number one, Bureau of Reclamation, is going to cut back agriculture considerably. The one part of agriculture that I think they're going to protect with this agreement is going to be any crops that are grown for direct human consumption with Colorado River water. So you're talking about the produce industry, maybe perhaps some other specialty crops, but mostly that. Everything else is at risk.
And so Yuma, which produces more winter lettuce than anywhere else in the U.S., is that? Are they dependent? I mean, they're on the river. Is that their water source? And are they protecting them?
Partly, but they also have wells.
Okay, that's
And
what
I would say that the side of Yuma that is growing the produce, which is mostly winter crops, they'll be protected. But I don't think we'll see things like cotton and durum wheat any longer. And I don't know about the forage crops.
And I was just going to ask you about cotton. Is cotton something that you can grow and be profitable with?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Not even close.
Okay, that was a very direct answer.
You have a nickname for it.
Yes, I call it the poverty weed.
The poverty weed, okay.
Yes, yes. If you farm it long enough, it'll take you to the place you're headed.
Well, I had lunch with Sir Richard Branson, and somebody asked him, what's the quickest way to become a millionaire? He said, well, start off as a billionaire and buy an airline.
There you
and
go.
I think he's probably accurate.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but where I live, out by the airport in Marana, everybody around me grows cotton. How are they doing this, and why are they doing it?
You know, in some cases, and Arizona's unique in that, right, that we grow a lot of save seed. Okay, what that means is these large seed companies ask us to grow their varieties to increase the volume of seed they have to sell, because the best planting seed in the world comes from Arizona. The vigor of the seed, all the above, the cleanliness of the seed, the whole 9 yards. So that's probably keeping some of the cotton industry alive. If you see a field of cotton today, I can almost guarantee you that it's under contract for a save seed program.
Okay.
But straight production agriculture cotton, you don't see that here anymore.
Still doesn't seem like a realistic place to put our water resources.
It really isn't. I mean, and it's time that we face the fire. Even those of us in agriculture realize now we're to a breaking point, and we're going to have to prioritize that water use significantly.
So, what is going to happen to the hay business? Hay meaning in Arizona. Mostly, you do winter mix too, but most people do alfalfa, Bermuda. Great crops in Arizona if you have the water, because we get all these cuttings. What's an average cutting number?
You know, we
Arizona?
produce about 10 tons of alfalfa in Bermuda per acre per year. So, you know, of course, alfalfa, the window for it is much longer than Bermuda. Alfalfa will cut 1.25 tons, 1.5 tons average for 8-9 cuttings during the year. The Bermuda will get 4 or 5 cuttings, but they'll be robust. So we'll make about 10 tons. 8 to 10 tons is
about roughly the same range. So what's going to happen to that market? Obviously, very impactful in our business.
Yes, and that's going to be the big question in your business, in my business, is how much forage is going to be impacted by this decision. How much alfalfa is going to go out? How much Bermuda is going to go out? We don't know yet. In fact, I don't even think that the BOR has made the official announcement yet. But we got an inside view of that.
Okay, so is the BOR, you mentioned it, so I'm going to go there. Is the BOR starting to take some of these decisions over? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a necessary thing.
Okay.
And the reason being that the states could not come to an agreement. So if nothing else, we're going to be force-fed an agreement, and we're going to be force-fed an agreement that's going to protect the higher best use, which means they're going to protect municipal use water above all else. And I'm not talking about pools and lawns. I'm talking about drinking water, water to take a bath with, things of that nature. And it's high time that somebody stepped in and said, we stop the waste here. And when I say waste, I mean, literally, we are irrigating 60-cent cotton with this valuable resource. And in Arizona, and third world countries are producing, in fact, are outpacing us in cotton production. And I don't really know if we need that industry in the United States any longer.
Interesting. Okay.
So let me ask you, how does a place like Tucson which once was the biggest city in America, dependent solely on well water. Now they use indirectly CAP water. We all know that story. We won't run down that different lane, but how do you distinguish, how does the Bureau of Reclamation, how do they manage, here's what you get, municipality, but pools and landscaping, not. Drinking.
I think they're going to let the municipalities govern that.
So they'll
What they're
shrink their
gonna s-
allotment?
They're going to shrink their allotment and just say, hey, this is the water that you're getting. Make the best use of it. And I mean, make the best use of it. Don't screw around. We're down to the nut cutting. I mean, I pulled up this deal on my phone so we could go through it together here.
Great.
And this is from our Arizona. What is it? Anyway, our water department in Arizona, and I look at this thing constantly. So to give you some idea, Russell, you can look at this here. That's Lake Mead. It's get down to 33% capacity, 8.63 million acre feet. Powell is worse at 25%, 5.73 million acre feet. Sounds like a lot of water still, except when you come down here and you realize that's the current. So for instance, Mead has 8.6 million acre feet of water in it. It can hold 26 million. So that's in 1 year, it has gone down 27%. So Powell is at 5.7 million acre feet, down 16%. It could hold 23 million. So between the two lakes, you can hold almost 50 million acre feet of water. And right now, we could barely get 13 million acre feet between the two of them. And they were talking about the upper basin states, kind of forcing them into a release. So if they release water, if you look at the total holding capacity of all the upper basin states, they can't make a 2% impact on those two big lakes. That's if they drained all the reservoirs. And you know those states aren't going to allow that to happen.
No.
So we're at a moment here where we have to make a decision. It's going to be a tough decision, and we have to live with those decisions because there is no other option.
I was up in Colorado a couple of times near Denver area. And there was just, they didn't know, the folks I was visiting, they didn't have the numbers other than just, it's a horrible year. You often know, what is the snowpack? Do you
Less
know?
than 50% of normal.
Less than
Number
50.
one. The inflow into the big lakes, into Powell, is 22% of normal right now. Okay, think about that. And here's the first one. This natural occurrence, this drought, which has happened before, was basically inside the Colorado River catchment area. Now it has expanded. It's headed more into the Midwest, and the western slope of Colorado is in as bad a shape as we are now. I mean, the eastern slope. This was pretty much specific to the western slope. Now the eastern slope is feeling the pain. The Rio Grande isn't running past Albuquerque.
No kidding.
The Rio Grande, Elephant Butte Lake, which is a large agriculture retention lake, and then as time went on, several huge municipalities downriver learned to depend on it as well. It's under 2%. Of capacity.
So
it is a mud puddle.
I heard that. I haven't been by there in a while, but I heard it was just virtually gone.
It's virtually gone. Yes.
Wow, that's quite amazing. Okay. Well, the next thing I want to talk about, we're going to go to commercial, but when we get back, I want to talk about everybody wants a data center, and everybody's screaming about the amount of water that data centers use. So I would like you to help us separate fact
Everybody
from fiction.
wants or nobody wants?
Oh, it seems to me that depending on who you talk to, everybody wants it or
They're-
nobody.
they're controversial.
All the data centers want to move to Arizona.
There you go.
Right.
They just can't find a home.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
But we'll talk about
And
that.
they're desperately looking for one.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that as soon as we get back.
The True family welcomes you to the ranch that has been their home for over 55 years. Reconnect with nature, family, friends, and serenity. Ride through the unspoiled desert, rugged mountains, and cactus that have brought Hollywood filmmakers to the ranch for over 70 years. Recognized nationally for excellence in service and value. Our ranch adventure vacations offer lodging, amenities, daily meals, and a vast array of ranch activities. Come visit White Stallion Ranch today for the adventure of your lifetime.
Okay, and we are back with the Cowboy Up Basecamp for Veterans podcast with our guest, Arnold Burrell. Okay, Arnold, before we went away for break, you promised we could talk about data centers and the good, the bad, and the reality.
Okay. So let's talk about the total impact that the data storage centers are going to have on central Arizona and where we're asking them to locate. And we're asking them to, if they're going to be water users, if they use a water cooling system, we're asking them to locate themselves on agriculture land, which is just fine as far as I'm concerned. You have to replace one user with another. You can't add new users to our already stressed aquifers. So to give you some idea, the naysayers love the fantastic. That's how they drive their point home. So I think, if I heard correctly, a data storage center is going to go through about 100 million gallons of water a year. Okay? So when you figure a acre foot is 330,000 acre feet, when you divide it out, a data storage center, if they buy 300 acres and retire it, and which is what most of them are doing, when you put it all together, they're going to use about 20% of the water that the agriculture user was using on that same land.
Okay.
So,
And let me ask you specifically, when you say they're going to use, what'd you say, 1 million?
100 million.
100
Cattle.
million.
Mhm.
Is that total that's going to be used and depleted, or because don't they recycle this water through a
Yes,
whole
they do.
lot?
Yes,
mean,
they
there's
do,
a
but I
bunch
think
of
they'll
reuse.
still go through that amount of water.
That's what
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, that's
but
what I
the
assumed.
thing of it is the water becomes to a point unusable
Right.
after you've got I don't know, I think I heard that they circulated through like 50 some odd times before they're done with that volume of water. But that doesn't mean you can't release it and put it on a tolerant crop, like say Bermuda would withstand the salt content, things of that nature that build up when you recycle water that many times. But the bottom line is they're going to use 20% of the historical water use on that same ground. You usually have one farm employee for every 450 acres. You're probably going to have 8, 10 high-paid employees working there, tickling your local economy, where before you had one guy that wasn't making a whole lot of money and sending half of it back to Mexico. So the value add, the gain, is really big for Arizona, and the water savings is really big. And nobody wants to talk about a data storage center and say water savings, but that is actually the truth.
So, as a preservationist, how do you feel about them taking these 300 acres of agricultural land and making a little bit of it a data center?
Well, I mean, you're asking me.
I'm
right?
asking you.
Well, I mean, it's fine right up until we run out of space for agriculture. I mean, you sit here and you think this conversation through, and Arnold's an expert on cotton. Cotton should probably mostly come from other countries, is what we're learning today.
Okay.
So, there's going to, it's like everything, right? It's going to force reaction. And, if alfalfa in Bermuda gets too expensive, the horse population and other uses will shrink, but then other ways to solve that problem will have to be found. There's things like fodder, and they use like 5% of the water So there's always an answer. It's just the pain of getting there. And so, if the data center thing is interesting because this is going to happen.
Oh, yeah. So perfect. I really loved your answer there, Russ. So we're probably talking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 data storage centers in central Arizona. That's 3,000 acres. Let's say if they all buy 300 acres, okay? Just the Katy Irrigation District alone is 75,000 acre district of farmland. Stanfield, Maricopa is the same size. So you're at 150,000. Their impact isn't even going to be negligible. But the retirement and the higher use for that land, I think, will be a big value add. The big thing that Russell was talking about, more of a societal problem that we have in the hay business and in the cotton business. Why don't we have more hay? It's definitely more important to the food chain than cotton. But why don't we have more hay? Because hay isn't traded on the Board of Trade. So if somebody can't figure out how to make money on the sweat of your brow, they really don't want to support it. So what happens? When the farm program comes out and there's a disaster payment or a relief program for the pain and suffering that the cotton producers, the wheat producers, the corn producers are getting, there's never anything for forage crops. There's never any support for alfalfa, Bermuda, things of that nature, because you can't trade them in New York to a profit. We need to prioritize things that are more important to our food chain than antiquated prehistoric crops that should go the way of the dinosaur.
Let somebody else do them, and then we'll concentrate on what matters to us.
Exactly. So this is what I'm saying. I think there's enough water for a robust forage industry, and there's enough water for data storage centers. But I really don't know what we're doing irrigating something like cotton. Wheat is another great example. The last time I grew wheat, I got a Durham contract. I think it was about 2006, 2008. And I grew wheat for 21 cents a pound and made great money. Not huge money, but good for a crop of that nature. So I think this year the offer was 14 cents a pound. And of course I declined. So we went from 21 cents to 14 cents. Meanwhile, we all know what inflation has done to our costs. So even wheat, we're not getting any offers because we don't have any off-takers.
And Durham wheat is used for
pasta. Okay. It is pasta, and we lost the European market. Almost 100% of the wheat grown in Arizona would go to Italy.
No kidding.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know in California, a whole lot of rice that they grow in California goes to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of rice.
Yeah. Is this true? Since we said wheat, I read once that wheat is the easiest grain crop to grow and will grow in a more diverse set of soils and climates than any other grain.
You're talking above my pay grade. I don't really know the answer to that.
I don't either. That's
what you're talking about is like dry land farming and things of that nature. I know nothing about dry land farming, but I would imagine you're right. Out in western Nebraska or someplace like that, you could plant a wheat crop and it'll make some kind of yield.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, that crop is probably so tough and can do so much. That's why we have the prices we have today. Rampant overproduction
of wheat,
of everything. Corn prices in the dumps. Of course, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Not making trading partners adhere to the agreements that they've made is a big part of that.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is China.
Okay, good enough.
Okay. It's funny. I was going to ask the question
there.
differently. I was going to say which trade.
Yeah.
So it's
China. So China wants access to our economy, and it's a give and take. So okay, you take some ag product from us, and we'll buy what your production from you. But they were selling to us, previous administration, and getting their ag products from South America, which is a big, oncoming, huge agriculture industry. So they were shopping down there for a cheaper product and then expecting us to take their production, their cheap plastic stuff.
Right.
And the bottom line is, it's a tit for tat deal. I'm going to do for you, you're going to do for me. But we did not make them adhere to their trade agreements, and they did not take the ag products that they said they were going to take.
Okay.
Are we having any success now making them stick to their agreements?
They are back to trading with us again, yes. Not at a volume that is acceptable by the U.S., but we're headed that way.
But better.
Mm-hmm.
There is a positive trend.
Yes, there's a positive trend. That's a good way to put it.
So,
Go
ahead.
If Arnold, if you gave up your extensive responsibilities in your businesses and you were put in charge, the Bureau of Reclamation, I said earlier the Army Corps, but the Bureau of Reclamations put you in charge of this current drought system, which the trend could change next year. I mean, we don't. There's theories, and they're all right and they're all wrong. What would you do? Well, how do you manage this in the big picture? It always starts at the big picture. Devil becomes the details. But what is the big picture solution?
Well, I'm going to use my rear view mirror first.
Well, that's the best way to start.
You bet. I would have started earlier. I would have heeded the warning signs, and I would have started earlier. And by that, I mean that when I was on the Katie board in 2001, we had kind of an emergency meeting, and we said, hey, there's a problem with the lakes, and everybody get ready. We're probably going to start looking at a 5% ratchet down of our water allotment, and probably take 20 years, and they'll cut us completely off. But this lakes deal is serious. 20 years later, 2023, so a little more than that, 22 years later, they came in and cut us off 100%, but had not touched our water allotment up until that time. We all saw the disaster. We all saw the lake levels dropping, but there was no decision till 20 years, 22 years after the fact. So that's where I would have started in the beginning, right there. But if you want me to fix things, really fix things,
Yeah,
I want to touch on this subject. This is where I would go. I would not fix, but I would revert the Electoral College back to what it used to be. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the Electoral College was geographical, not population-based, because our forefathers knew that the population centers would take over the decision-making, and you would have mob rule, and they even said in the Constitution you would have the common sense of a farmer. Well, what happened in 1970 when they changed it to population base?
You're totally educating me. I didn't know that.
I would take it back to geographical, and that would start the use of common sense again in government.
Absolutely.
Which I don't know. You might get banned, shot, crucified, something for that, but I think this really need a boatload of common sense in our decision making in this country.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Is if we get all, I forget, crammed into the cities as Europe is, his words are different, obviously, much better, but we're lost." Is what he said. Mm-hmm. But given the incredible unlikelihood of making that change, I mean, I would make the state legislatures used to pick the senators, the U.S. senators, and that was changed. So we have lost some of our original thought. What would you do to manage where we are today going forward?
On the water issues?
Yeah. What do you do given where we are, being now 20 years ahead of 20 years from now? Mm-hmm. What do we do?
Alternative water sources. And we have to really throw ourselves at that, whether it be desalinization, whether it be pipelines. At one time, we were talking about pipelining a lot of water from Canada, who has an unbelievable amount of fresh water. That's where I would go. Obviously, people want to live where they want to live. They don't want to live next to the water source or whatever. Not everybody. Some people love to look at saguaros. So if we're going to do that, then we're going to have to pay to bring the water with us. If we want to go out to the desert and live next to a cacti.
Sure.
So that's what we're going to have to do.
So knowing all these things, is this a factor of we're getting less rain? I mean, this may sound like an incredibly basic question. Are we getting less rain? Are we using our water irresponsibly?
In 1994, I remember this like it was yesterday. I read an article in the Tucson paper, and it was a tree ring specialist from the University of Arizona that said, hey guys, if my calculations are right, we're on the front end of an 80-year drought that ended the Hohokam Indian civilization. And he said, I think it's going to be 40 years in and 40 years out. So when we hit the bottom of this thing, we won't know it. And when we start coming out, we probably won't know it for a decade. But yeah, we are in a historical repeating drought.
Okay.
And I can't remember if he said it was a 500-year drought or a 1,500-year drought, but this is the drought, the same drought that ended the Hohokam Indian civilization, and he could tell this by the tree rings.
Okay.
And when did he say it started? You said it.
1994.
94.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good news.
That's not good news.
No, it's not good news. So in California, and I know President Trump addressed this almost immediately, regarding rainwater that comes from Northern California that's being washed out to sea to save, I think, the Delta smelt or something like this. Mm-hmm. Is that any part of this solution, or is that such a tiny little drop in the bucket?
No, it's huge, but the problem is it's in the wrong place. So California would have to learn how to capture and hold, build the infrastructure to capture and hold, and then they'd have to build distribution. Okay. And that would probably alleviate the Southern California problem with this drought. But we would have to hope that they would be so gracious as to share some with Arizona, because we don't have the Sierra Madres. I think the Sierra Madres were actually over their historical snowpack this year.
They were.
And they've got huge amounts of water
Really?
going down and washing out to the ocean, and they're having to release it. In fact, they drained all those reservoirs in anticipation of the spring melt.
Right.
And they're going to have great water for agriculture, great water for, I guess, San Francisco, some of the other cities. But Southern California is in the same condition we're in.
Yeah.
They're living a drought.
And you said earlier their rights are perfected because they predate U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always understood there was the agreement. It was based on rainfall numbers that were way above average, so it was computed incorrectly to begin with, but that California won't lessen their grip on that water.
No, they won't.
And they just won't.
You know, California is a resource hog, whether it be water, electricity. When I was on the Trico Electric Board, we had to reroute our electricity that we were wheeling in from the Pacific Northwest, because the California utilities told us the power may come into California, but it may not come out. We may need it. And if we do, we're not going to honor those wheeling agreements, and we're not going to let you have your power. So we had to find an end around California.
Well, another thing I know about California is in Northern California, the lakes are mandated at certain levels in anticipation of snowmelt.
Yes.
Even if there's no snow, they still have to drop to those levels, and those levels are very, very low.
Well, they're depletion lakes.
Yeah.
They're made for they were initially intended for agriculture use to irrigate with, and by the end of the irrigation season, you would basically have them dried out, and then you would catch that winter snow melt and everything and replenish them, and you know, most of the time it's like clockwork. But unfortunately, we have this event that's happening, and it's a slow motion event. I mean, if you believe what the tree ring specialist said, it could be 80 years.
Not a good thing.
Not a good thing. And we're going to have to get creative, and we're going to have to get aggressive, and we're going to have to start now.
Okay, what does getting creative look like? Does that mean smaller cities not allowing people to build? What does that actually look like?
He said pipelines. Alan Day used to say pipeline. Get a pipeline from Canada or the Columbia
all
River.
the above. To be honest with
Yeah.
you, what you said,
Okay.
all of the above. We're going to have to get creative on how we use water, how we get water, if you will, how we create water. It's going to be comprehensive. It's going to have to be, and it's going to have to be a societal attitude to, not flush the toilet every time or whatever. We're going to have to make that decision ourselves.
Okay, I mean, I know pipelines are a part of the solution, but they're not going to happen in the next year. I mean, this
Oh,
is
I don't even, the environmental
exactly
impact that it would
of
it would be a
anything.
tough row to hoe.
Absolutely.
Oh.
So to start with, we're going to have to learn to work with water better.
We're going to have to learn to work with the water we have. We're going to have to learn how to maybe redistribute how much of the, let me call it local water we have, means maybe upper California sharing, at least down to the southern side, and lessening the pressure on the Colorado River system. We're going to have to do it.
Wow. Pretty eye-opening.
It is, and it's unfortunately, where those of us in agriculture, we're standing in the middle of the tracks and the train's coming at us. We can't get out of the way, but at least I hope that our tribulations are going to serve as a warning system to everybody else who's dependent on the same resource, and it's coming our way
Soon.
soon. And let me tell you something. I will say this. So proud of the Pima County and Tucson and the way that they have handled their water. I know it's kind of been a no-growth attitude, but you get in a situation like this and you can understand the motive to their madness. Preserving that resource, holding it. Our aquifer is so strong here. It's so robust. A lot of it has to do with the recharge that Tucson did, but also I think some of it has to do with not getting carried away with our water. And so I'm going to shout out to them. Kudos.
Wow,
They've
okay.
done a great job.
Excellent. Somebody saying something good about a government agency.
Absolutely.
You don't hear that very often.
Absolutely. Tip my hat to Tucson Water.
Excellent.
Well, in Tucson, Pima County has and I think it's because the Santa Cruz River, even at its height, was kind of an up and down, below the ground and back up. And so they didn't, Phoenix was spoiled, and they embraced it with their Salt River project. And I don't know now, historically, they used over 2 times the water per capita as Tucson.
Yeah.
So we've always had a culture of
Preservation.
preservation,
Yeah.
I think largely by necessity, but yeah, we've always had this Pima County, Tucson area.
You talk about the Phoenix area, and we got the Department of Water Resources who's supposed to have their finger on this. And they're so far behind on their accounting, on knowing where the aquifers are, knowing what the water situation is. I read an article quite a while back that they had issued 100-year assured water certificates to 180,000 unbuilt homes, and the water didn't exist. So they are scrambling because they've handed those out. And they can't take them back. And they are scrambling to get their hands on every bit of water they can. And it's very well reflected by the governor's new Ag to Urban Act, which finally the state has come out and admitted that the water does belong to the farmer, and the farmer has the right to sell that water to the developers. We're just at the beginning of it, but we're seeing that manifestation. So you talk about data storage centers, you talk about, solar farms, all of this other stuff. Heck, you don't have to sell your farm for all of that stuff. Just the water rights alone are going to be enough, and probably a lot of growers are thinking about getting out. But now there's that new tool to move the water from the field to the city.
Well, I know in California, and I've got a friend who's a very large grows pomegranates, and the company Palm, P-O-M, they're going out and they're buying as much land as they can, provided it comes with water.
Yeah.
Don't grow a lot of pomegranates without water.
No,
No.
You don't. And Palm isn't interested in growing pomegranates.
No, they're not.
They've got other people that do that for them. They just
Right.
want the water.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's
sure.
liquid gold.
It is liquid gold.
Yeah.
So, any parting shots? Things you want to say that you haven't said?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The water issue is like the weather. Everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it. I'm so glad that BOR has stepped in, actually. And I think we need to take their lead and become more aggressive and build on the decisions they make, build locally on those decisions and say, what can we do here? And I think Tucson has been a model for that. I really do.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Arnold, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this level of education, the fact that you joined us today, because your time is valuable.
You know what? It really sucks to be me. I don't want to know all this stuff, but I do.
You don't
It's
have any
scary.
choice.
It's scary some days.
I don't think you have a choice, do you?
I don't think so. You know, you try to. I'll stop for a second. Yeah, I do want to say something. You know, I was blessed when my dad decided to come across that border and become an American citizen and raise his children as American citizens. So I've been on boards. I've been on everything. I've tried to help my community every chance I've gotten over the years. You know, we're 35-year buyers out at the Pima County Fair, things of that nature. And that's part of also being aware of all these subjects and seeing if you can help anywhere at all. But you have to know what's going on before you know if you can interject at all and help. And that's all we've tried to be. You know, our family is so grateful because we could have been Mexican citizens, but we're American citizens. And so for that reason alone, we stay very active with this.
Well, I've heard a lot of stories about you, a good percentage of them from Mr. Russell True. And you are, in my opinion, the definition of what it means to be an American. You go out and you risk every single day and you want to make things better.
Yes, and I'm telling you something else. I'm living proof that the American dream is not dead.
It's very much alive.
Very much alive.
And I think sadly it's wasted on a lot of people that were born and raised here because they don't understand the opportunity.
You know why
what
they
it
have a
takes.
championship? Because not everybody's a winner.
There is that.
Okay,
There is
so
that.
so that's all right. Don't worry. But the people that work hard and are adding value, we need to let them run with the ball.
Thank you again for joining us, Arnold.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
So, Russell, I don't know about you, but I'm gonna take a shorter shower, and I'm probably gonna sleep not quite as well tonight because I feel like my education on water has grown by about 500% in the last hour.
Well, you know, I think the water thing is you know, it's funny because people from the outside, that's mostly who I meet,
Yeah.
is tourists from somewhere else. And they always ask if they're engaged in, they ask about water because they assume for good reason that, and of course our little situation at the ranch is good because we have a good well and we have a nice aquifer as Arnold was talking about, and we're not, you know, we used to have 5 lawns, we now have no lawns. So we're water savvy, but you know, I think the water thing will solve. Because those kinds of things have to solve themselves. But you know, I like what Arnold said. You know, he appreciates being an American citizen, and he works hard to make America better because of that. So that's the message. Forget water. Let's talk about that.
I agree. Yeah. So, okay, that about wraps it up for this edition of the Cowboy Up Basecamp for Veterans podcast. I appreciate you joining Russell, Arnold, and myself. Until next time, Cowboy Up.